Hello, and welcome back to our channel. Today we take a glimpse into Sharpeville, a township simmering with hope and resilience before it became synonymous with tragedy. Sharpeville, a historic township located between the bustling industrial cities of Vanderbijlpark and Vereeniging, in southern Gauteng, South Africa, and holds a special place as one of the oldest of 6 townships in the Vaal Triangle. The township was named after John Lilly Sharp, a distinguished figure who arrived in South Africa from Glasgow, Scotland, to serve as the Secretary of Stuarts and Lloyds. Sharp's influence extended to the Vereeniging City Council, where he was elected in 1932 and went on to serve as mayor from 1934 to 1937. The need to move people from top location to a location farther away from Vereeniging as a result of black residents being too close to Vereeniging was the impetus for the creation of Sharpeville. Originally planned as a 5-year resettlement project beginning in 1935, it ended up taking 20 years. Despite the initial intention to only relocate residents of top location without accommodating additional people, the housing shortage was not alleviated. By 1941, 16,000 people lived in top location, yet the construction of houses only commenced in 1942. The housing scheme in Sharpeville was sub-economic, with 14 houses sharing 1 tap and 2 bathing complexes in the township. Although the township was initially named Sharp Native Township, it was later changed to Sharpeville in the 1950s. The Sharpeville massacre, the 21st of March 1960. Before we dive into the specifics of this tragic event, it's important to understand the broader context in which it took place. South Africa was under the rule of apartheid, a system that segregated people based on race and denied many rights to non-white citizens. The African National Congress, ANC, led by Nelson Mandela, fought tirelessly against this oppressive regime. When Sharpeville was first constructed in 1943, it was intended to take the place of Topville, a neighboring township that was plagued by overcrowding and high incidences of illnesses such as pneumonia. Consequently, removals from Topville began in 1958, forcibly relocating around 10,000 Africans to Sharpeville. In Sharpeville, the unemployment rate and the incidence of criminal activity were both high. There were also issues with youth involvement in gangs and criminal activities, leading to a decrease in school attendance. Additionally, a newly established police station was staffed by officers who conducted routine pass inspections, detained unauthorized inhabitants, and conducted raids on illicit shebeens. During the 1950s, the National Party government of South Africa implemented a series of regulations with the objective of regulating and overseeing the employment and mobility of African citizens. Urban residents older than 16 were mandated to carry passbooks comprising their identification card, a work permit obtained from the Labour Bureau, which reflected their name, personal history, as well as information about their employers. Impediment control measures were implemented by the government in urban regions with the aim of limiting the influx of Africans into zones dominated by whites. The National Party administration, led by Hendrik Verwoerd, utilized these laws more aggressively to enforce greater racial segregation before the Sharpeville massacre of 1960. During 1959 to 1960, they were expanded to include females. Since the 1960s, pass laws have been the principal tool employed by the government to apprehend and intimidate its political adversaries. In opposition to the pass laws, the African National Congress, ANC, made preparations to launch a political protest campaign. The Pan-Africanist Congress, PAC, under the leadership of Robert Sobukwe, began its campaign 10 days earlier, on March 21, 1960, anticipating that the ANC would lose because they did not believe it was capable of winning. On March 21, 1960, a crowd of 5,000 to 10,000 individuals assembled outside the local police station, willingly presenting themselves for arrest due to their lack of passbooks. The protest did not entirely catch the Sharpeville police off guard because they had previously scattered smaller groups of more radical activists the previous night. The Pan-Africanist Congress actively promoted the demonstration by distributing pamphlets and appearing in person to urge people not to go to work on the day of the protest. Many of the civilians present came voluntarily to support the protest, but there is evidence that the Pan-Africanist Congress used coercive tactics to bring the crowd there, such as cutting the telephone lines into Sharpeville and preventing bus drivers from driving their routes. By 10 o'clock in the morning, a large crowd had gathered, and the atmosphere was initially calm and festive. When the protest began, there were only 20 police officers present at the station. However, as the crowd grew to around 20,000 people, the situation turned ugly, prompting the urgent arrival of 130 additional police officers, who were backed up by 4 Saracen armored personnel carriers. No evidence showed that the crowd carried anything but stones, unlike the police, who had firearms. Jets and Harvard trainers approached and flew within 30 meters of the ground over the crowd to disperse the protesters, who began retaliating by throwing stones. As the protesters breached the police barricades, 3 law enforcement personnel were struck. Tear gas was employed, but it failed to deter the advances, leading the officers to resort to their batons. At around 1 p.m., there was a surge in the crowd as the police tried to apprehend a protester. The shooting started when the police reached this point. This resulted in 69 deaths, including 10 children, and 180 injuries, many of whom were shot in the back as they turned to flee. According to police reports from 1960, young and inexperienced officers panicked and opened fire spontaneously, triggering a 40-second chain reaction. It was also suggested that the police were likely quick to fire because, 2 months before the massacre, 9 constables were assaulted and killed, some disemboweled, during a raid at Cato Manor. Some of the police officers present had not received public order training, and some had been on duty for over 24 hours without a break. Lieutenant Colonel Pienaar, the commanding officer of the police reinforcements at Sharpeville, offered insight into the police force's mindset. In his statement, he mentioned that the native mentality does not allow them to gather for a peaceful demonstration. He denied giving any order to fire and stated that he would not have done so. The uproar among South Africa's black population was immediate, and the following week saw demonstrations, protest marches, strikes, and riots around the country. On the 30th of March 1960, the government declared a state of emergency, detaining more than 18,000 people, including prominent anti-apartheid activists who were known as members of the Congress Alliance, including Nelson Mandela, and some still enmeshed in the treason trial. The massacre also horrified many white South Africans. The poet Duncan Livingstone, a Scottish immigrant from the Isle of Mull who lived in Pretoria, wrote in response to the massacre the Scottish Gaelic poem Bin de Vaquia for a higher marb had lays a foiliers, a black woman mourns her husband killed by the police. The Sharpeville shootings in 1960 sparked a storm of international protest, leading to sympathetic demonstrations in many countries and condemnation by the United Nations. This event marked a turning point in South Africa's history, as the country found itself increasingly isolated in the international community. It also played a role in South Africa's departure from the Commonwealth of Nations in 1961. The Sharpeville massacre contributed to the banning of the PAC and ANC as illegal organizations. The massacre was one of the catalysts for a shift from passive resistance to armed resistance by these organizations. The foundation of POCO, the military wing of the PAC, and Umkhonto we Sizwe, the military wing of the ANC, followed shortly afterwards. Since 1994, the 21st of March has been celebrated as Human Rights Day in South Africa. Sharpeville was chosen by President Nelson Mandela as the location for the signing of the Constitution of South Africa into law on the 10th of December 1996. In 1998, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, TRC, found that the police actions constituted gross human rights violations in that excessive force was unnecessarily used to stop a gathering of unarmed people. Former President Nelson Mandela unveiled a memorial as part of the Sharpeville Human Rights Precinct on the 21st March, 2002, to commemorate the 42nd anniversary of the massacre. The Sharpeville Motorbike Run is a powerful annual event in South Africa that commemorates the Sharpeville massacre of 1960. By honoring the victims and promoting human rights awareness, the run serves as a poignant remembrance of a tragic event, while also symbolizing unity and solidarity among the people of South Africa. If you've been enjoying our South African travel and adventure videos, be sure to show your support by liking, subscribing, sharing, and hitting the bell icon. Your support helps us grow and brings you new and exciting content.